We are live. Welcome to Couples 412 Live. We got a packed house. We have a hot topic tonight. I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck. This is my wife. I'm just going to start saying Impeccable. This is Impeccable. This is my wife, and my beautiful wife. And we have some wonderful, wonderful guests sharing with us tonight. I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck. This is my wife. I'm just going to start saying somebody, we have some wonderful guests sharing with us tonight. This is somebody. Everybody mute your mic really quick. The technical difficulties. And it could be somebody. Lord have mercy. Second time in a row I did that. Testing the link. Everybody, welcome. Again, let's start over again. It seems like as soon as you start doing something for the Lord, the enemy just wants to come and have some resistance. You can unmute your mics now. We have an action-packed show, and I don't even want to call it a show because it's really just a hangout. And a lot of people haven't even hung out. My grandmother's like, "Where are you hanging at?" We're like, "We're doing a Google hangout." She's like, "Well, where are you guys hanging at?" And I'm like, "Hey, we're just hanging out online," which is really just over just everybody's head. A lot of people haven't. We all have webcams either on our phone or on our computers or our tablets these days. But man, it's just good to be here another month talking about intimacy. Let me introduce the Parkers, who are our co-hosts, Q and Charlene. Are you guys? Is your mic working? You guys?
Yeah,
Hey, welcome. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. How you guys doing tonight?
we're actually wonderful, man. It's a great Tuesday. Week is going so far so good, so great. And man, we're just happy to be in a packed room, man, of other couples. This is just beautiful.
Intimacy is the topic. Pastor Thurston, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, but we can see you. You look like the Blue Man. You joined the Blue Man crew in Vegas. We cannot see your camera, but we know you're here.
How about now?
There you go.
Oh, we saw you.
There you are. You're back. All right. Beautiful. We have
Dr. Corey Carlisle is joining us tonight as our sexpert therapist.
sex therapist. Okay.
It's me. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Just finished up a day with clients. So glad to be here with you all this evening.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Corey, we're going to get into it tonight. And then we have Tashi. Can you hear us? I don't know if I got you muted or your mic is muted. If not, okay, this is her husband.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Spencer. Spencer, how you doing, man? Welcome to Couple 412 Live.
Peace and blessings. How's everybody doing? Glad how have you?
Great, we can hear you a little bit, but I think it's the sound. And his beautiful wife, they're in separate locations right now. Tashi, welcome to Couple 412 Live.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It seemed like it was just a technical struggle, but everybody was intentional. We do this once every month online. We just hang out with cool couples all over the world just to talk about making our marriage better, dealing with things, struggles, and we're going to celebrate our victories together. And this month's topic has been intimacy. And it is a hot one. If you were at the live session, we welcome back Pastor Stephen Thurston. We were so glad to have him back joining us again so that Q and I didn't have to come up with the content. We could just sit back and
Right.
we're just glad to have you back hanging out with us, Stephen. You don't know. It's easy.
I'm glad to be back, guys.
Hey, Couples 412 was a vision started by me and Q in Dubai. Well, it might have not did, but it came together for us. We were hanging out both in the music business and saying, you know what, it's got to be a better way to do this and make marriage cool and just combat everything that's always so negative about marriage. Everything they show on television, everything they show, just the images that they portray are not positive about couples really doing it. and doing it well and doing it big. I almost went to LL on that. Y'all wanted me doing it. That was no pun intended, but it's intimacy month, so we can get it in. And if it's not intimacy month, it better be, because you gotta get it in, right?
Right.
Okay, just checking. We got some statistics that might overwhelm people today of how often people actually are getting it in. As married couples, you'll be surprised and even shocked. But Couples 412, it's from the scripture Ecclesiastes 412, which means a strand of three is not easily broken, which basically says, if I'm here and she's here, and there's nothing to hold this strand together, we're gonna just drift right out the picture. But when God's there, it's like, I'm trying to go, but God is like saying, come on, man, get yourself together. She's trying to, not really be with what we committed to in the marriage, and so she's trying to go. And so the foundation which marriage was set on, which we believe, is in Christ. So if we're a reflection of Christ in the church, we got to be that reflection here on earth. So that's Couples 412. We're doing it. Anything you want to share? No?
Not yet.
Terms of endearment, honey, sugar. Let's work on that. Let's work on that, fellas. Sometimes we might not even get it together, but sometimes we got to just work on some terms of endearment. Just because it's just great. You can speak life into your wife and into the situation. Parkers. Let's have a moment with the Parkers, really quick. See what you guys have been up to.
Well, this, for the last couple weeks, Q and I decided to try something new. You guys know that Q is into health and fitness, working out 7 days a week, darn near. And so what I decided to do, the way he decided, we decided, yeah, we're working out together. And you know what? I hate to work out. It's a struggle for me. I'm not happy about it, but I know it's something I have to do. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I know I'm a quick fix girl. I can take a diet pill, maybe eat some lettuce, or try to get in that dress when the time comes. And I really struggle. So I can get up in the morning. It's not the problem getting up. It's like he said, put on them workout clothes and come on, let's go. I think I try to find every excuse, but I have been dedicated for what, Q? 2 weeks. And I have a trainer that's training me. She's excellent. Her name is Mel. She's doing a great job. But I'm going to tell you guys, I remind her every day that I'm 45. I can't do so much.
But though, one of the good things about what we're doing is creating another opportunity for us to spend some time together.
Mm-hmm.
And with my wife being a business owner of us in her own right, and with me traveling and doing all the things that I do, sometimes it's difficult to try to find time to just hang out. So we make sure we make a point to squeeze lunch in there, to have a day of the week that is just dedicated to the two of us. But with us working out together, I know from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10:30, and no, we don't work out that long, but 6 a.m. means we get up, getting our son prepared for school, getting him to school, staying in school a little bit, then getting to the gym at about 8:30 to like 10 o'clock. So from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock every day, since we've made this commitment, I know that I'm going to be able to spend time with my wife. So that means we're driving in the car together. We're able to have conversation together while we're in the car. We're able to get on the same page, whether it's about us, our household, our son, our daughter. So, one could say that it's us getting together to work out, but I'm looking at it like it's more time throughout the day and throughout the week that we're actually being able to just be with each other and make the best of just the two of us being able to share intimate times with each other.
Man, that's awesome. I'm like you, Charlotte. But I'm moving towards it. I'm trying to change the way I'm eating, but man, I'm gonna just tell you, and I want to just take my hat off, and I'm not wearing the hat, to the Parkers. They had their second annual night out with my lady here in Atlanta at Morehouse College, and if you were not there and wanted to be, that was the place to be. It was just a night. We dressed up. it was a big production. It almost seemed like it felt like an adult prom in a sort of a kind of way. You know, you had to be meticulous about what she was going to wear. You know, you're going to match her, or you know how it was going to be. They had a live band. They had, I mean, if you guys listen to the gospel station, FM Gospel was popping up. Willie Moe Jr. and his wife, they were there. They were there hanging out with us. And man, I don't know if you know, this is how we do it. The guy from California, Mr. Montel Jordan, but him and his wife, Kristen, who have been in the music business with Q and myself for years. She was his manager, longtime manager, and I think she still is. She's working more on being his longtime wife more than his manager at this point. But they were the keynote speakers, and man, they had some great nuggets.
They did.
Why don't you share just a couple things?
Well, also, and also for those that missed it, they have a book that's out. It's called "This Is How We Do It: Making Your Marriage a Masterpiece." So it covers some of the tips that they gave us. I mean, they made the declaration that they would be together, married forever, and they gave us 5 tips. But what's most appropriate about one of the tips was their tips on intimacy. And you, Q and Charlinda, you guys are spot on. It was, the point was, be passionate about something that, be passionate about whatever your spouse is passionate about. Yeah. And so in that case, you know, this is working out for you, but it might, in her case, it was football. And that was in, this is in the chapter 14, the intimacy factor. So she learned more about football and gained appreciation with that, and that they're able to spend time together. And then it hit home the point that intimacy is not just a physical thing, but a spiritual and emotional thing. And the tips they gave us was that look at your spouse the way God looks at him. So your husband is God's son, so we have an obligation to treat him in that way. And the same way, I'm God's daughter, so the husband will treat me as God's daughter. And that it's our job to show the husband how God sees him in the same way. So that was some great takeaways from that night. And again, we had a great time. The music was great. The fellowship was great. And we were so interested in their message, like we said, that we started reading. This is how we do it, making your marriage a masterpiece. So I encourage you guys to check it out.
That's right. This God's daughter, because you know, for those out there listening who have a daughter, you don't want nobody talking to your daughter wrong, your wife wrong. You know, that's the, you know, fellas, that's instantly gonna set us off.
Right.
Yeah.
Our sons, you know, we might say, "What happened? Get back out there and get a stick and hit him." You know, and go back out there and fight. But you daughters, you out there fighting. So I mean, they just said it was work, and that was, I don't know, Q. If you have any of that video, we can post that on Couples.
Yeah. It's definitely coming. Yep.
If you just tuned in, this is Couples 412 Live. We're hanging out with some cool couples, some cool doctors, some pastors from all over the country, and we're just celebrating the coolness of marriage. That was our whole goal, and it was just to connect with other couples and just do some creative things. Because sometimes we think we're isolated, but we're not. We are really all in it together, and if you haven't experienced something, you will. And maybe I've already experienced, so I can just say, man, let's lock arms together and make it happen. So why don't you introduce one of our guests tonight, and then we'll introduce. We have a couple sharing, Spencer and Tashi. Now, Tashi, I'll let you tell a story a little later, because she reminded me at the Drew Hill concert this past weekend in B.B. King's in New York that she watches Couples 412 live, and I said, well, why don't you and your husband come on? Yeah, they're not even in the same city, but they figured that Google Hangout out, and they hanging out. We're going to get back to you in a minute. I just wanted to say that. But you want to introduce Dr. Corey?
Yes, Dr. Corey Carlisle. He's an ordained minister, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a certified sex therapist.
Expert.
Yes, he's a sexpert, and he has a private practice. It's called Building Intimate Marriages. And he holds a Master of Divinity and a Doctor of Philosophy with degrees in marriage and family therapy. And his dissertation, he wrote a dissertation on this topic, Sacred Sexuality for Black Americans. So we couldn't think of anyone better to join us tonight as we talk about intimacy.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here and sharing this journey with you. It's exciting to see couples coming together and having this dialogue. You're right. that sometimes it feels very lonely, that we're doing this by ourselves. And so very exciting to be contacted and seeing that there's other people who are pouring in and speaking life into our community and into marriages.
I'm sorry, I'm the producer too, so let's hang out. I gotta move to your camera, like camera 3. They're like in my ear. But make sure you get your air time, brother. Is there a website or something of your practice that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I'm in practice with Building Intimate Marriages here in Suwanee, Georgia. There's about 8 of us regular staff, and then 3 interns this year. So again, in private practice, we see clients ranging all sorts of issues. So dealing with just general communication, marriage issues, marriage enrichment. We are a specialty in sex therapy, Christian sex therapy. So a lot of our clients come in, deal with some aspect of that. Quite a few of our clients with the topic this evening deal with affair recovery. And so quite a bit of my caseload deals with that very issue. And then also other various sexual issues. And so whether that's discrepancy in sexual desire, whether that's sexual dysfunctions, whether that's sexual addictions. I have several on my caseload dealing with sexual identity issues, just sorting through how to understand their attractions, dealing with recovery from abuse. So again, just a whole wide range of sexual issues. Sexual pain is also included in there. And so, yeah, a team of 8, including our interns, and so we're able to offer a low-cost option as well. And so for clients who want to come in, whether they want to see a male or a female or someone who's a little younger, a little older, and then again across the age of experience and cost.
Wow, that's exciting. I mean, you may have never known that these places were there. And sometimes we like to say, as African Americans, we don't really like to go to therapy. It's just like, we sometimes have song therapy on this show. We're not going to have it tonight because it's just the hour is short and we got to get into this intimacy, but we're glad to have you. Why don't you introduce the new couple, man?
Yes, the Jacobs are here, and they were college sweethearts. And they met at a radio station, and they both had their own show, so they are no strangers to being on a show. So that was interesting. They met on a show, and she interviewed him for a class project, and they spent the whole day together, right, Tasha? And she said she's had her heart ever since that day, which was like 9 years ago, right, in September?
Yes.
And they've been married for about 4 years, and they have 2 children, ages 6 and 11 months. Welcome.
Welcome, Spencer and Tasha Jacobs.
Humphrey.
Humphrey.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Jacobs Humphrey. I'm sorry. We don't want to get the man upset.
Jacobs Humphrey.
Yes.
I'll put a ring on it.
Ah!
Put a ring on it. He said, Humphrey.
So welcome. So are you guys just in separate locations now, or does work take you separate lives?
Well, Spencer just got a job in the South, so he moved there, and I'm up here still with the children, and so we've been separate for about since April. Since April, we've seen each other back and forth. I've been down there, and he's been up here, and that's how it's working right now.
We understand. It's a lot of couples that are taking because of their jobs and their situations, but just pulled into separate states. There's a lot of entertainers, there's a lot of actors and actresses, and just there's a lot of people in general who go through it. And it's admirable that you guys want to connect and work on and build your marriage. So welcome. You got a question?
Well, I think we are excited again, like we said, that Stephen is back, and we want to hear about this topic. We heard about intimacy earlier this month, Stephen, and you got people all riled up. We were talking about makeup sex. We were talking about all different issues. You got on a whole nother tangent. We got some tips from Charlinda, some One Piece. I haven't been by the Chinese market to get that yet. We've been traveling. We've been traveling.
I'm waiting for it.
Getting all the tips in, and we're looking forward to seeing how you take this in a little bit different direction as we talk about the recovery after some issues with intimacy. So we're interested in hearing about what you have to say, Pastor Thurston.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dana. Again, welcome everybody who's joined us tonight. And it's cool to be back with Couples for 12. I missed you guys over the past couple of months. So thank you, Q and Kevin, for holding it down in terms of the content. As we focus tonight on this topic of intimacy after infidelity, let's understand that in adultery, everyone eventually suffers, even if it's just an emotional affair. And Doctor, please feel free to jump in, man, since you're so well versed in this area. If you see me falling short, man, don't hesitate to jump in, and we can do this thing together tonight.
I hear you.
And this issue of adultery, it causes everybody to suffer because it hits at the very foundation of trust and commitment within the marriage union. And so we find polluting or weakening and even destroying of the union coming about as a result of the affair taking place. When we look at the marriage relationship, it really should be the most intimate relationship that we have. And an intimate marriage thrives on a couple of things. Number one, commitment. Number two, honesty. Number three, trust. Then you've got comfortable companionship and a sex life that's both safe and connecting. And Kevin and Dana shared something at our last session, the live session. They made an interesting point in how Satan often will try to get us to hook up and to connect before we get married, and makes it very tempting for us to go there. But once we do decide to do it right and get married, he then flips the script on us and tries to do everything within his power to pull us apart. And one of the greatest weapons of mass destruction against the marriage union and the marriage vows is adultery, is an affair. And so if you're tonight on the front end, congratulations, where you haven't had that to invade the boundaries and the borders of your relationship. But some of us tonight that are joining in for this conversation have found themselves beyond the boundaries and the borders of the vows that they once took. And understand tonight, if you're in that place, that unless that affair is confessed and dealt with, the relationship is going to remain polluted, and it's going to be weakened, and all people involved are going to remain damaged. And so unless healing takes place, couples live with a very poor excuse for what real companionship is designed to be. That deep intimacy, that powerful partnership, that oneness that we ought to have in the marriage union, it's fractured. And so we end up living beneath our promise and our potential as the union should provide. And then you discover that the dishonesty that's created by this affair, the dishonesty created by the cheater, leads to spiritual deterioration, this divided loyalty, and a sacrifice of the love, the joy, and the peace that's promised by God. And so again, some of us tonight, we've considered the cost of our consumption. We've hung the no trespassing sign on the front gates, and we've guarded our union from outsiders. And so again, congrats for fighting the good fight, and continue to share your story that it might encourage somebody else and keep some other couple from venturing down the wrong road. But again, there are those of us who share tonight that are living with the collateral damage of some broken fences and some breached boundaries. And so let me encourage you tonight to remain committed to the partnership, to work through this and on rebuilding what's been torn apart. I want to dive into an affair and look at the phases of an affair. For those who are in it, so you can see where you are. For those who aren't in it, listen, we never know what may happen. And don't think that you're just so high and mighty and you're just so holy that you can't spit in the wind and the spit won't come back and hit you in your face. Because we never know what might happen to us along this journey called life. And so I want to lay out what an affair kind of looks like and some of the phases that it goes through so that you can see the warning signs, you can see some stuff coming, and you'll know how to recuperate from there and regain the intimacy after the infidelity has taken place. And so normally the question at the onset that's running through people's mind, especially if they've been in an affair, had an affair to wreck their relationship, is can I be happy again? Can our relationship be whole again? Can we get back to the place that we used to be? Can the love, can the flame burn bright again? Can intimacy exist after infidelity? And the answer to all of those questions is a resounding yes, it can. But it lies in your mind. You've got to make up in your mind and make the decision that you want to get back to that place of happiness and wholeness. You want to be miserable for the balance of your life, you make the decision to do that. If you want to be happy for the balance of your life, you likewise have the power and ability to make that decision. And so I would encourage you, make the decision to be happy, to be whole, to regain some intimacy even after infidelity has taken place. So let's dive into these 5 phases real quick. Number 1, there's inception. And so the question is, how do they start? How do affairs start? Whose fault are they? Is it always just about sex? A couple of things with inception. Number 1, affairs don't always signal that the one cheating has no love for their spouse. Listen, affairs happen in intimate, committed, loving relationships. Yes, he can love you and cheat on you, and then once he's done with that situation, because it's a situation often, not a relationship, still love you afterwards. That's actually able to happen. Just because he's cheated or she's cheated doesn't mean that they don't literally love their spouse. Second point I want to raise is that adultery is often not centered on sex. Yes, sex may ensue, but often it's not the primary reason or cause. And oftentimes we see, especially with men, that it's really not about sex. That comes later on down the road, but that's not the primary focus of it. In some cases, in a lot of cases, it's often the result of an emotional void. There's your emotional bank that's empty or depleted in some area. And somebody else comes in and begins to fill that void, and then from there, it may proceed to a physical act. The third thing that I want to say under this umbrella of inception is that the ultimate cause of infidelity is ultimately a series of poor choices. The adulterer chooses to have an affair. It's a willful act. It's an act of volition. They may create excuses to justify their actions, but at the end of the day, it's still a choice that was made. And so we move from this place of inception to pre-discovery. In the area of pre-discovery, there's guilt, there's some excitement, there's dishonesty, webs of deceit are being spun, and patterns are starting to shift within the spouse that's doing the cheating. And so the spouse being cheated on knows something. They know something isn't quite right, but they just can't put their finger on it. But ladies, you got your sixth sense, and that starts kicking in. Your gut is telling you that something's off, something isn't right, something's going on, but you can't necessarily put your finger on it at this point. And the adulterer, the cheater, is often oblivious to their changes in behaviors and patterns. And what I often share with couples from a pastoral lens and pastoral perspective, if they've got some concern whether or not their spouse is cheating, before they call cheaters and get the camera crew to come in and start following people, the number one question that I ask is, what's happening with their patterns? Have you seen a shift in their patterns? Because humans are creatures of habit. We normally follow the same pattern of behavior. And so once there's a major shift there, that should be a red flag that something's taking place. And over the time, as this thing begins to draw out, we become careless, we become sloppy, you start disconnecting, and the cheater begins to start justifying their feelings and their actions. Now we find tremendous rationalizing and compartmentalization is occurring on the part of the adulterer. And so in their mind, mama told me I shouldn't have married her anyway. Or he wasn't nothing when I found him. I should have married up instead of marrying down, hoping I can pick somebody up from where they were and bringing them to my level. So all these thoughts start kicking in, and you start justifying why you're doing what you're doing. Anger, frustration, and distance are now growing in the relationship. Something is wrong, but nobody wants to address it. You're painting this public picture that you're the Huxtables, but here's the reality. You're living a nightmare on Elm Street. And so the warning signs are there, the red flags are there, but we keep waving them off, we keep sweeping things under the rug, and we keep ignoring what's telling us that the relationship is in a vulnerable state and we need to engage in some activity to save it. The cheater now has his feelings ranging from guilty excitement to self-loathing, and the cheated has their feelings ranging from fearful desperation to confused hope. And if you tonight are in an adulterous relationship, if you're in the midst of having an affair, it's at this place of pre-discovery where you might want to pause, where you might want to make that decision to count up the cost and consider the consequences of your consumption, because this is really a good place for you to stop, for you to call it quits, and for you to return to those vows that you took that day that you walked down the aisle. Listen, God will oftentimes challenge us privately before he exposes us publicly. And what you're feeling right now with this infancy stage of the relationship, with this outside person, that conviction that you're feeling, that guilt that you're feeling, that's God challenging you privately before he exposes you publicly. And I would warn you that you want to listen to his voice as he's seeking to challenge you privately, because once he exposes you publicly, man, all hell can literally break loose in your life and impact every realm of your relationship. And many times the collateral damage extends to many beyond the circle of just that marriage union. And so we've got pre-discovery. Phase number 3 now shifts to discovery. This is where things are found out about. And once you hit this phase, a variety of feelings, issues, and reactions have to be worked through. And it doesn't matter how it's discovered. Discovery by whatever means throws both partners into a space of pain, guilt, betrayal, and deep loss as both partners now enter this grieving process. Either she saw your phone, saw your text messages, saw the pictures coming through, had a private investigator to follow you around, or again, the cameras from Cheetah showed up and caught you in the mix. Doesn't matter how it was discovered, you're now going to face this place of a grieving process as you begin to grieve the loss of trust, loss of oneness, and the death of dreams and hopes. Now, adultery is like a funeral. And at this point of discovery, where the spouse has found out about the adulterous affair, you need to now view the body. And what I mean by viewing the body is that there needs to be a thorough, honest confession to validate that a real loss has taken place. And this is necessary to thoroughly grieve. And from there, you can then seek to reclaim the marriage. But that grieving process, the viewing of the body, has to take place. And you need one thorough confession with details that will help your mate to heal. Yep, you got to spill the beans. You got to tell everything. You've got to sit there and answer all the questions. As uncomfortable as it may be, as much as you're sweating, as much as you don't know what the end result is going to be, having that thorough confession with all of the details will help you and your mate excuse me, to heal now from where you've placed the relationship. And after this confession, you got to choose to engage process questions rather than detail questions. Let me say that again. After the thorough confession, with all the details have been made, after this confession has taken place, now you've got to choose to engage process questions rather than detail questions. Let me give you an example. When did it start? How long? How sexual? Was it in our house? Was it in our bed? Did you take her to our favorite restaurant? Did you use condoms? Who all knows about it? You got to get all those questions out there. You got to get all the details out there. Man, I know if you're the one that's done the cheating, it's going to be a very uncomfortable place because she's going to hit you with all kind of questions. Remember, men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. Everything's connected for them. And so they're going to run the list of all types of questions you would have never even thought to ask. But she's going to ask them. But listen, let me define again the difference between process questions and detailed questions. Detailed questions need to take place at that point of confession. But once you got all of that out, now it's time to switch to process questions. And process questions deal with what was missing from your mate's life and the relationship that caused the affair. So for example, how did love for someone else grow? Or what needs to change with us? What needs to change with me? What needs to change within you? How can trust be rebuilt? Those are the questions that you need to shift to. Juxtapose again to detailed questions, because detailed questions create vivid nightmares and are counterproductive to forgiving and rebuilding. Listen, it becomes ineffective if you keep exhuming the body to do an endless autopsy. So you've got all the detailed questions out, you've now shifted to process questions, and 6 months later, you want to go back and dig that body back up, exhume it, and engage in another autopsy by engaging in these detailed questions. Well, what positions did y'all try? How deep was your love for them? It's ineffective, it's counterproductive to forgiving, rebuilding, and moving forward if you keep back digging that body up and engaging in an autopsy. So again, let me encourage you, after the initial confession, filled with detailed questions, then there needs to be a shift and a move towards process questions if you're trying to successfully rebuild this relationship. Understand now that trust and fidelity have been violated, and healing is going to be torture for the both of you at this stage in the game. The cheated on spouse, there are a couple of things that you ought to be doing that should shift towards doing. Break through the shock and denial and vent your feelings as you grieve what's been lost. Number two, Ask questions that seek to prevent another affair. So again, process type questions. Questions that will help you to rebuild the fence and hang back up that no trespassing sign. Number 3, destroy all the secrets, and you guys need to put everything on the table so that you can have open, honest, transparent conversation and begin to rebuild the trust and be one again. And then number 4, if you've been cheated on, exact some penance for the feeling of pain that you've been caused. I was talking to a couple once, and she'd been wanting to get her kitchen done for a couple of years, and he kept making excuses. This affair came out, she discovered it, and she took that opportunity to call the contractors in and spend as much as he could to get her kitchen. And so I went on to ask her, man, well, how much did you get out of your husband to get the kitchen done? And she proudly said, I spent a good $80,000 getting that kitchen just the way I wanted it. And he had to sit there and cut that check because of the damage that he caused in that relationship. He had to pay the price. And so listen, it can be expensive. It can cost you to violate somebody's trust, somebody's commitment, and all that comes into that marriage relationship. And while you're going through this, the cheater is going to continuously ask in their mind, how long do I have to suffer? How long do I have to pay? How long am I going to be in the doghouse? Well, that's relative to the relationship, the length of the relationship, the extent of the cheating, how she feels or how he feels in response to it. There's a lot that goes into it. But listen, if you big enough and you bad enough to violate the vows, you got to be big enough and bad enough to suffer the consequences and do everything that you got to do to prove yourself over again, that this person can trust you, depend on you, and that they can hold you in the place where you ought to be in that marital relationship. We come out of the discovery phase to move to phase number 4, recovery. And here in recovery, interrogation will continue, but again, remember, let's focus on process questions, not so many detailed questions. The one that's been cheated on, yes, or cheated, the one who did the cheating, you're going to have those outbursts of feelings and questions that are going to pop up seemingly out of nowhere. Y'all going to be good in sleep, and they're going to wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning asking you some questions. Get your butt up, you got to deal with it. Listen, anything may seem to trigger an outburst, and you've just got to understand that your spouse, your mate, the love of your life is still processing this thing, and they're healing from the death of what once was. But as you engage in this recovery process, understand that an investment of time, money, and energy will be required to restore the marital intimacy lost through the affair. It's going to take some work, like was shared with us at a night with Our Lady. You're going to have to put in some work. And this is part of the penance and the price paid to restore intimacy within the relationship. Number 2, resentment and hurt will occasionally resurface, and recovery proceeds, and forgiveness will have to be an ongoing process. Resentment will hurt and will occasionally surface, and as recovery proceeds, and forgiveness will have to be an ongoing process. Remember, stop trying to make them hurt in terms of your payback as much as they hurt you. That can be counterproductive, because we have to remember now, forgiveness is a gift, and it's something that if we were in the other position, we would want to receive. So be careful that you don't do more damage and more harm by trying to make the one who did the cheating suffer as much as the one that was cheated on. Slowly let go as trust is earned and trust is rebuilt within that relationship. The trauma of the affair, it can often create a deeper intimacy with better boundaries as greater maturity grows out of the crisis. If you have your mind made up that we're going to work through this, that we're going to grow through this, and we're going to be better because of this. Only and if both partners are committed to restoring the relationship. It's going to take both of y'all putting in the effort, putting in the labor, exhausting the resources to bring this thing back up to a healthy and whole place. We shift from the recovery stage to finally fifth, the resolution. As you face it, you can now fix it. You begin to see that the equilibrium is reestablished and intimacy deepens as the couple begins to work towards recovery. The interrogation, it'll slowly start to fade away, ultimately getting to a place hopefully where it stops. The grief has now been worked through, and the marriage can now either continue to grow stronger from the base of recovery and changes that have been made, or it can settle back into the same routines and become prone to future affairs. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to go back to the same normal routine that may have set up for things to go downhill. So you got to guard it. You got to make some changes in your behavior, in your mindset, and put those guards in place so that you can affair-proof your marriage. The key is to continue strengthening and protecting your relationship. Face the flashbacks and stay focused on your future together. Engage in some development as you're doing by joining Couples 412, where you can get information, you can share with other couples, be empowered and inspired to be better and to do better. Let me quickly give us 5 quick things as infidelity inhibitors, and then I'll be done with you for tonight. Number 1, set some warning signals that indicate vulnerability in the relationship and will prompt you to make the needed changes. Have a check-in, have a checkup session with your mate just to see where you stand, how things are going, what needs to be changed, what needs to be addressed, what needs to be tweaked so you can be prosperous in this relationship. Number 2, love and affirm your mate and your marriage and resist the grass is greener syndrome. Quit looking at other people's stuff that looks shinier, that looks better, because oftentimes it's really just artificial turf. Number 3, study the biblical and relational skills of confrontation, confession, repentance, grieving, expressing feelings, and forgiving. That's important to have a healthy and the whole relationship. Number 4, problems often precipitate affairs. And so devote time in personal and marital, devote some time to personal and marital development. Read some books, go to some seminars, take some classes, connect with things like Couples 412 so that you grow personally as well as maritally. And then 5th and finally, build on the intimacy of your marriage by differentiating between sensuality and sexuality. That's what we focused on in our live session just a few weeks ago. And master both of those. Master the sensuality aspect, which deals with the senses, is not directly smashing, getting to that middle box as we've discussed before. And then you got to master the sexuality part. Both of those together will make for a healthy and whole relationship and will lead you to make love rather than just make do. As you do these things, you'll begin to put that no trespassing sign back on your gates that have been well prepared, well preserved, and now able to protect this healthy and this whole relationship. Couples 412, that's my time tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you got something out of it.
Yeah, we got something out of it. Good God. We were just up here like, man, I tuned in for intimacy. You want to smack it.
As always.
Wow, they're like, wait a minute. God, hold up, Steven. If you just tuned in, this is Couples 12 Live. You never know what the Lord gives another person to share, and the Lord must have meant for him to share that tonight, because I was thinking about how intimate we can be doing different experiences and working out and hugging, but it's other sides of it, because everybody goes through different phases, and everybody's marriage is, is different, but yet the same. Parker, Q, how you feeling over there?
Oh man, that was so on point, and it's just a testament, man, of just the things that we're doing and understanding that that this is a community, and we need to be able to rely on each other, because so many couples go through different things. Some may be listening that is actually walking through this right now, and to just hear these words can just give them the courage and the will to just say, hey, you know what, I'll continue to press forward. So as Steven always does, man, gives us some things that we can practically just take with us and walk with on a daily basis. And I know that if anybody is tuned in today or will share this link to somebody, that they'll definitely be helped through the platform that we're trying to establish here at Couples 412.
And as usual, we always put all of the notes on couples412.com, so if it seemed like a lot of meat that Steven was sharing and a lot of tools that you can go back and reflect on, let's go to couples412.com. The Good Doctor, I saw you taking notes. How are you?
Give us some good stuff, man.
Hey, we need some balance. We don't need to hear nothing about that. We heard Steven say, okay, after the affair. But how about if it hadn't been an affair and it's just a drift apart, and you really don't understand intimacy because maybe you never seen it, or maybe you equate intimacy with just sex or something of that nature?
Gotcha. Yeah, so I'll try to touch on a couple of things. I do want to touch base on some of Steven's thoughts, and that to some of that, just from a clinical perspective. But to your question, there's more to intimacy than just the physical. And so as it was talked about earlier and in the book, where there's the emotional intimacy and also the spiritual intimacy, but also add mental intimacy and social intimacy. And so there's different ways to connect. So intimacy is about allowing ourselves to be seen, to be known in the presence of another. So how do we do that emotionally? How do we do that mentally? How do we do that socially? How do we do that spiritually? And also physically. And even physical intimacy is more than just about sex. And so there's just enjoying each other's physical form. There's looking into each other's eyes. There's listening to each other's voice. All that is a form of physical intimacy that's not even involving touch. So there's ways that we can be intimate physically that long before we get to sex. Certainly sex is wonderful and great, but as we're cultivating a well-rounded intimacy, it is doing all of that. I like Stephen's thoughts as it relates to affairs, letting us know that there is hope. And so just because it's fair doesn't mean that it has to be the end of our marriage. There's hope, there is recovery. And so again, in my practice, we call it a fair recovery, meaning that you can recover from this. And actually one of the biggest consequences of an affair, not that I wish this on anyone, is a much better marriage. And that point was made also. Each affair is different. And so there's different types of affairs. And so there's the one-night stand. There's individuals who are dealing with sexual addiction. There's individuals who are involved in an emotional affair or emotional entanglement affair that becomes sexual. And then the add-on kind of affairs where whether it's sports or a hobby and you're just hanging out together and then it becomes sexual. And so recovery is going to be different for those different types. I like your phases here. Most clients, when they come to me, they're coming to me at the discovery phase. And so as we're past deception, we're past pre-discovery, they're now coming at me at discovery stage where everything has hit the fan and now they're trying to figure out how to rejoin. Mm-hmm. And so how I set this up is there's often something going on in the marriage before the affair happens. There's often some underlying issues that are misaligned. And so whether that's a lack of communication, whether that's a lack of trust, whether that's just doing an unhealthy dance with each other, there's something off in the marriage before the affair happens. And so the affair is a symptom. And so I call that the cancer of the relationship. So there's a cancer in the relationship, there's a cancer in the marriage that, if not addressed, could very well become terminal. What an affair is like being in a car wreck while having cancer. The ambulance doesn't take you to oncology, the ambulance takes you to the ER. So we have to deal with that immediate trauma, we have to deal with that immediate emotional trauma before we're dealing with those underlying issues. And so as Stephen pointed out in the discovery and recovery resolution phases, it's dealing with that initial trauma. And so there's times of confession. There's times where to put it all on the table. That may be one session. That may be an extended session. But while you're in that ER, that's the time to put everything on the table. And so for the spouse who has cheated, if you got caught, now's the time to certainly disclose that. But if there's things that your spouse doesn't know about, now would be the time to disclose all that as well. While you're in that ER process, while you're healing, then would be the time to do that. And if the spouse who's been cheated on has any other questions, now while we're in the ER is the time to do those questions. Once we made it through the ER, dealing with some of the emotional impact, dealing with some of the anger, dealing with some of the grief, dealing with some of the fear that has caused, now we can go deeper into the cancer. How did we get here? What are some of those communication patterns? What are some of those dances that you're doing that we need to address? And so if we just try to put a Band-Aid on the affair and go straight to the cancer, some marriages won't make it. And so you're going to bleed out before we get to that cancer stuff. And so we have to deal with that here and now affair before we can deal with some of those deeper issues. But as was pointed out, at some point we do need to move on. So we don't need to keep resuming the body. We need to, at some point move on. But again, there is hope. And so there's charges for each. There's times to be truthful. There's times to believe. A good marriage can't be built on untruth. And so deception is part of how the couple got here. So being truthful in all things is part of how to get out. And then choosing to believe. At some point, if your heart is closed off and in unbelief, then a marriage also can't move forward. So I think I've taken up enough time. If you have any other thoughts or reflections, I'm happy to chime in on that. But that was just some of my initial thoughts.
At least after you smacked everybody around, you and Stephen, you want to keep it alive because it's like somebody's getting help. This couple's 412. This has been the Intimacy Month, and it's different sides of intimacy. We have Spencer and Tashi. They've been hanging out. They've been pretty quiet. They've been married for, what, 4.5, 6 years? Got it, go on mute. And it's just interesting just see, because you guys are in separate locations based on because of Spencer's job. How do you keep the intimacy going? Because it said it's not always sexual. Sometimes it's just looking in the eyes. It's just it's words of affirmation. It's just tuning in, you know, to each other's day and their needs and what they like, and being attentive while you're communicating. Or Spencer, whoever wants to share first.
Go ahead, babe.
No, you go ahead. I'm going to do what you have to say.
That's what you say?
He's telling her to go.
Oh, okay. Gosh.
So, you know, I'm guilty of doing what a lot of women that I know do, especially the ones who have small children, and that is prioritize the children and their needs over the needs of your spouse at times. So I admit there are times when, you know, he'll want to talk or, you know, connect over a show that we both watch or whatever. And I'm like, babe, I'm tired, you know, I'm nursing, you know, your son just licked me, you know, whatever. And I'm not always there. But, you know, the point that that Q and Charlinda were mentioning earlier, like things like, you know, working out together, encouraging one another. I think those are things that, especially while we were here together, I would take for granted. Like things like, you know, he'd come home late from work and be like, you know, let's go to the store. And I'm like, why? You know, he's like, I want to get ice cream. I'm like, you can get the ice cream. I'm tired. The babies just went to sleep. You go ahead to the store, and not realizing that, hey, that's him saying that this is a way that he wants to connect. This is some intimacy that he wants to have. And I am learning how to recognize that and not ignore it, and put aside, you know, my mommy duties, because a lot of times he'll say to me, you know, I miss my girlfriend. What happened to my girlfriend? And I didn't get it initially, but then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, he's talking about pre-babies. He's talking about when we were in college and we could stay up all night, you know, listening to music and, you know, vibing, or, you know, we're both actors, you know, going over lines together, whatever. And, you know, so I'm working on it. You know, I'll admit he's a lot better at it than I am. And I think it'll get different or get better now that I recognize it. And certainly, you know, as the children get older and they're not as dependent of me. But, you know, he does a better job than I do for sure.
Spencer, if you want to chime in, I muted your mic. I didn't know. But the mic you have to unmute it. Yeah, we can't hear you right now. You have to unmute your mic.
Oh, I was on mute. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. First of all, I want to say, babe, thank you for being open. I realize that it's on the, you know, we're both parents, and oftentimes, I understand that it's taxing, you know, to be mommy. Oftentimes I was gone a lot. I had very long work hours. I was working 11 hours a day, 5 days a week. And even now, you know, by default, you for the kids alone. And so I guess right now I have a luxury of desiring, you know, well, babe, let's talk. And babe, let's talk whatever about shows, music.
The mic is cutting in, and I know you're saying some things that
Is this better? Can you hear me now? Better?
Yeah, a little bit now better.
How about now? Was that better?
Yeah.
Much better.
I don't know what you
Okay.
did.
Great. I was trying to hear you guys through my JBL speaker, and it wasn't working with audio. What I was saying before though was that
Okay, yeah,
I understand that you know, it was she has the luxury of desiring more of her time because I didn't have children around me, you know, at the time, and so I've learned to be more patient with her time and not to be so demanding and understand that before I desire my girlfriend, which is how many times I have said that, I have to understand that, hey, like, you know, you need to have time for everything. So even though I may want this time, that time might be devoted to the kids, and I have to understand that and kind of like, you know, not take it personal, not take it to heart, and understand she's not dissing me. But you know, the babies need time and they're taxing, and so kind of waiting to be more patient. I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult, you know, because I'm a very emotional person, I'm a very passionate person. So sometimes I'll be like, babe, like, you know, where's my girl? Like, let's just go walk around the street or let's go walk around the block. It's not that difficult. I'm not asking you to, you know, abandon your responsibility, just walk outside. But it takes energy for that. And so a part of my move and me coming down here was to the opportunity that I have with this new job is to provide a better life so that we can have a better work balance once they join me, to make money as well as have a work-life balance, to have that time so that we can have mommy and daddy time and with better work hours and things of that sort. So it was a culmination of things, but I'm very patient. I love her to pieces, and I understand that I see the effort, and the effort makes me happy. And so we're going to work it out. It's not a problem.
That's awesome. That is awesome. The effort is worth it, fellas. If you're listening, ladies, if you're listening, the effort that you just spending time hanging out with Couples 412 Live with, you know, Pastor Stephen, Q and Charlinda, Dr. Corey, Spence, and Tashi. We're so glad you came, you know, because it's couples around who we just need to do things. You know, we need to. Sometimes we're running so hard in life at missing the real life, which is right here with us, which nobody really knows how much time we actually have together. Charlinda,
Well, I want to say something to Tashi. I think that, and I'm sure David, as a mother, we all do that. I did that with Q, and like your said, kids are going to get older. You guys are going to spend more time together. But I think being a mom and you want to try to be the best mom that you can be, being a perfect mom, which is no perfect mom, but just trying to do everything right. I did the same thing. Put little Q over top. You know, everything was little Q, and Q was begging for my attention. And, you know, baby, can we do this? Can we do that? We don't have to. When we went on vacation, went out of town, anywhere, I wanted to take Quintus with us. You know, and he would constantly remind me, like, baby, we have to have some adult time, some our time to, you know, keep everything going. So, I mean, don't feel bad about it. Work on it. You know, split your time up. Your husband do come before the kids. I had to learn that too. So, definitely, it's gonna get better. That's what.
Can I say something really quick?
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I wanted to say was earlier was that I think that Tashi, and I know she does, she took, you know, the motherhood role very seriously, and I love that. I love that. I mean, like she you know, championed the cause. However, what I found myself was at a place where I didn't felt like she trusted me. Like, you can trust spending time with me. Don't worry about it. You won't neglect the kids by doing so. I was like, because if you, like, the way I looked at it was the man being the head took care of everything, right? Like, he heads the home to make sure everyone's good, the children and the kids. So I'm like, babe, like, you don't have to do it all. I can help, and I'll make sure the kids is fine. I'll make sure I help put the baby to bed. I'll help take care of Noni, our daughter. I'll make sure he's good, our son. But there's nothing wrong. Like, let's just do something for us real quick, you know, and let's just connect, make sure we're good. And I promise you, I'll make sure the family's good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, just make sure that we have our moment in time. And, you know, again, it's an adjustment. But again, I see the effort, and I appreciate it. I just wanted to make that clear.
not a problem. You know what? It's the 10 o'clock hour, but we're going to if you guys can hang out, I know everybody's schedule is different. If we can hang out an extra 5 or 7 minutes, is everybody good?
Yes. Okay.
It's not like a network, so they're not gonna cut us off. This is our network, and we make it work. So, and you know, and I think we're touching on some great things in intimacy. I think we found some interesting facts.
Yes.
Why don't you share a couple of them?
Well, we were looking at that married couples. How often do you think married couples have sex? Well, it says that married couples have sex about 68 times a year, which is about a little bit more than once a week. But there are benefits to increasing that. If you increase that to 3 times or more a week, guess what? You can look 10 years younger.
Y'all
We
heard
may
me?
need to cut this short then, Kevin and Dana.
Well, you know, people keep running into me, you know, Steve is like, well, what you doing? Are you working out? And I'm like, absolutely not. 3 times a week, though. That's my young secret. It's about time. Stop holding out. Let's get intimate. Let's go to the gym. You know what? I love Q and Charlene. I love the fact that you guys are going to the gym and that you pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, Charlene. I mean, it is like, it's the most beautiful thing for change and growth. And, you know, a lot of times people just want to stay the same and because it's easy. But when you push yourself just a little bit out of your comfort zone, you're going to see such a change. I mean, the moments that y'all spend, and you said from 6 to 10. That's awesome because, you know, we were married on 6:10. So whenever we hear 6:10, it's time for a PDA moment. If you haven't had a PDA moment, it's going to be hard for you, Spence and Tashi, tonight. But this is called public display or internet display of affection. So we need a PDA moment. We got to get one. A wet, juicy one. If you hadn't got one,
She
she blew the kiss.
He caught it.
Went past my
Spencer caught
screen
it.
and
Spencer caught it.
Spencer caught it. We just want to probably have some closing remarks.
It would be great also to hear some success stories from Dr. Corey. Can you share a success story from some of your experience?
Yeah. And so clients who come in who are actually willing to work have no problem working through affairs and building a much better marriage, an intimate marriage at that. And so a lot of the things that you're talking about earlier, being intentional about creating that lovemaking atmosphere, spending time just with each other, becoming mature lovers, sanctifying your bedroom, just being intentional about all those tips helps to create an atmosphere to help keep you from having an affair going forward. And so, yeah, very possible for to be success and actually have a much better marriage on the other side. And so, yeah, I can't think of a client right off to give a story with. Most of them that I'm dealing with right now are going through it. But yes, certainly it is possible.
We need to hear that. We need to hear that it's possible, Doc. You know, we got to have some hope at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's hope. Just one of the stories today was not one of those days. And so
all right, come on.
ones that are coming to mind are the ones that I just saw today.
You know, so you can take all of those struggles and just throw them onto the Lord, because you know.
I hear that.
It is days like
Well,
that.
to connect with Dr. Corey, go to CoreyCarlisle.org, and his information, his phone number, his website is all on couples412.com in the resource section. So be sure to connect with Dr. Corey and the other therapists that we have up there that has helped out the Couples 412 family.
Stephen, any closing words from you, brother?
Yeah, I've had some couples that have come through that situation. They're doing well. They have their setback moments, but they keep fighting for it. And I think it's all a mindset. You've got to have that commitment. It happened. We're going to deal with the repercussions of it, but we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep going, and we're going to make this thing work. And as was shared in a night with my lady, divorce is off the table. Once that mindset is there, I think that it helps to push things in a forward motion.
That's awesome. All right, who's left? Q and Charlinda. I think your mic might be still muted. But I'm going to just throw this question out there. What kind of physical touch says I love you best?
Wow. I think that I think it's kind of couple based.
Mm-hmm.
I think that once you learn your partner, you know what things he or she likes. For me rubbing my wife's feet, at the end of the day, says, my husband cares about me. Uh, Me driving in the car and my wife just putting her hand on my neck or rubbing my head, or we just holding hands. It's so funny, but we put both of our hands on the gear shift when we're driving. To me, it says that in the midst of her texting and on Instagram and social media,
Yes.
she's in the midst of that. She thought about us enough to still put her hand on top of my hand, which is on the gear shift. So those little moments like that says to me that she loves me. Or when I just say, when I come home and just say, hey baby, sit down for a second, let me have your feet, and just rub her feet.
I like when Dana puts her hand on the gear shift too. Just I'm only married. Relax, y'all. Stop it.
All in Kevin.
Spencer and Tashi.
Yes, sir.
What are you willing to do that you haven't been able to do in the past to push the relationship forward?
Baby, you go first.
I want to say probably work on compromising a little more. Spencer and I have different love languages. He's more so physical touch and words of affirmation, versus with me, I'm acts of service. So I know that you love me when, I don't have to ask you to take the garbage out, or, you know that I'm exhausted and you take the liberty of doing something to help me with the kids without me asking. That thoughtfulness is what gets me. So I recognize that's my love language, and his is different. I have to work on giving him a little bit more of what he wants. He likes to be hugged and rubbed and cuddled with and all that other stuff, and I have to recognize that is. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were keeping it real. We family. He likes all of that, and I have to understand that that's what makes him tick. So, I'm working on that, and I appreciate these phases. I think that they were great. I have to watch this over and take some more notes, because even if you're not personally going through it, you got girlfriends, you got your homeboy, you have somebody who might come to you because they know that you're a Christian, or they look up to you, or they think that you got it together, even though you may not all the way have it together, but to be of encouragement. I think that that's awesome, and it's definitely inspiring for sure. Preventative measures.
Final words.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I got so much out of this hangout tonight. Definitely want to thank Brother Thurston for those tips and those stages, very detailed. I wrote a lot of stuff down in this notepad. Got a lot of it. We'll be going to the website to get more of it, because that was just great information to have. I think the best thing to tell my partner, my baby, that I love her, is being apart right now. I know her love language is acts of service. So when we get back together physically, she'll know that I up my cooking game, and I got my culinary arts.
You wash your hands now too?
Oh yes, yes indeed, baby. And I'll wash the chicken too before I cook it. So see, I'm doing everything. So she'll be culinary arts a little bit in the kitchen, and we're trade roles in that regard, because she primarily does the cooking, but I do more cooking now and kind of feed my baby, let her know that I love her that way. So I think she'll appreciate that. I got the spaghetti too, baby. You like it, so come on down.
Okay.
That's great. Is the end game Spencer and Tashi for you guys to come south? Or?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
I'm from Baltimore, and she's from Buffalo, and I can say that come on down.
Yes.
Especially if you're in New York. We hung out with a couple just in D.C., and they were just shocked with the prices in D.C. And I thought, well, just come on down a little bit more your money can go so much further, especially as you build a quality life for your family. People say I'm recruiting everybody to come south, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we went to school in Greensboro, North Carolina. He went to A&T. I went to Bennett College. And we're familiar
All
with
right,
that goes. So, yeah.
all right. Well, I guess it's been another great night hanging out with you couples. You know, we could stay here all night. Dr. Corey, we thank you for hanging out. For Spencer and Tashi, they are, I guess, not challenged, but you know, right now they're going through a transition because Spencer is now down in North Carolina, but they found it not robbery. Share with us tonight. Pastor Thurston, Stephen Thurston, we're always glad to have you. Everybody that comes on. So he's part of Couples 412. It's Dana and myself, Pastor Thurston, George Linda, and he's not married, so he just, you know, lay it all on us and then go. Anyway, those are couples412.com. Charlotte always says take a selfie couples and post it on Instagram, couples412, or just celebrate your love, celebrate your life and your wife, because she is the most important person in the world at this moment. So if you say goodnight to everybody, you can share the link. It's shareable. It'll be on couples412.com. Yeah, couples412.com. You can share the link. But just with somebody or just on your social media. All right, cool. Hanging out. So until next time, guys, be great. And we love you. Good night, everybody.
Nice. Thank you.